You ever get that feeling someone's about to try you before the sun's even finished rising? That was me, clutching my coffee in one hand and squinting at the group of wannabe mall cops marching up my driveway like they were about to raid a cartel hideout. Front and center, Karen. Of course. Who else? She stood behind them like some evil puppet master, her arms crossed, lips curled into that trademark smirk that screamed, "I'm about to ruin your day, and I'm gonna enjoy it." "Good morning," she chirped, way too cheerful for someone about to throw hands via clipboard. "This is the HOA Enforcement Patrol." I nearly choked on my coffee, though what now? Karen gestured like she was unveiling the cast of The Real Housewives of Suburbia, Tyrant Edition. "We're conducting a surprise inspection of your property." The one dude with a neckbeard and a walkie-talkie piped up like he was auditioning for a crime drama. "We've received multiple reports, noise violations, suspicious activity, possible non-compliance with Section 5B of the Beautification Protocol." I blinked. "Suspicious activity?" Karen nodded solemnly. "There have been whispers, unapproved lawn furniture, questionable lighting choices, and your hedges are 2 inches over standard height." I looked at my bushes. They were literally just bushes. Nothing shady, nothing exotic, just green, leafy lumps trying to mind their own business. I was half expecting her to cite them for emotional damage. Feigning innocence, I widened my eyes and stepped back. "Oh no, you better come in and check it out." They shuffled in like they were storming Area 51, clipboards out, pens clicking with self-importance. Karen hung back, giving me a smug little wave. "This is just a routine inspection," she said, her voice oozing the kind of fake sugar that gives you cavities. "If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about." Oh, Karen. Sweet, clueless Karen. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this house? Yeah, it belonged to the actual police chief. Me. Surprise. They started poking around like nosy raccoons at a picnic, checking window trims, pointing at a garden gnome like it was a security threat. One guy took pictures of my deck. Another measured my driveway slope like it was violating the Geneva Convention. I let them have their moment, watched the chaos unfold with the patience of a man who knew the trap had already been set. Karen tried to act casual, but she couldn't help herself. She strutted into the backyard, hands on her hips, practically sniffing the air for code violations. "You really ought to do something about these weeds," she said, not noticing the 2 security cameras catching every move of her unauthorized inspection. "Don't worry," I replied, sipping my coffee. "I've got everything under control." She gave me a look like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. Because the moment they walked through that front door, they walked into a legal buzzsaw. Every second of this surprise inspection was being recorded, time-stamped, and legally documented. No warrant, no authority, no jurisdiction. Just a bunch of self-appointed HOA clowns trespassing under Karen's personal witch hunt. It was beautiful. As they finished their investigation, Karen stepped forward like she was about to drop the hammer. "We'll be issuing a citation," she announced, handing me a folded notice. "You've got 48 hours to correct these issues, or the HOA will take further action." I unfolded the paper slowly, pretending to read it, then looked her dead in the eye. "Cool, I'll pass it on to my lawyer." Karen blinked. "Lawyer?" I smiled. "Yeah, you know, the one I work with at the police department, where I'm the chief of police." Her face went from smug to "oh crap" in 0.2 seconds. Behind her, the neckbeard clipboard guy froze, like he'd just realized he brought a Nerf gun to a SWAT team standoff. Karen stammered something about protocol and authority, but I was already walking them to the door. "Thanks for stopping by," I said cheerfully. "Drive safe, and hey, next time, maybe call ahead." They left in a daze, Karen trailing behind, her whole plan unraveling faster than a cheap sweater in a dryer. And me? I just went back to my coffee, smirking as the first sip finally hit. Game, hun. So there they were. Karen's bootleg HOA Avengers, spread out across my lawn like they were about to uncover buried treasure or a portal to another HOA dimension. Clipboards in hand, iPads buzzing, and the occasional dramatic gasp over a patch of slightly tall grass. I stood there, coffee still warm, watching them measure my hedges like they were preparing for an Olympic shrub trimming event. Karen, of course, was in full dictator mode. She stomped around with her knockoff designer sunglasses and a Bluetooth earpiece she wasn't even using, yelling things like, "That gnome is facing west. It should be northwest per Section 7C of the Decorative Lawn Ordinance." Yes, apparently there was now a regulation on gnome orientation. What's next, turf feng shui? I played the part of the confused homeowner to perfection. "Oh no, is that bad?" I asked innocently, pointing to my entirely average flower bed. "Is the petunia situation too aggressive?" One of the clipboard warriors gave me a serious look. "You've got invasive ivy growth within 5 feet of your perimeter fence. That's a Class B vegetation hazard." "Ivy?" I blinked. "Isn't that decorative?" He didn't respond. He was too busy taking pictures of my perfectly trimmed lawn, like it was a crime scene. Then it happened. One of them, a guy with an ego as big as his comb-over, decided to get ambitious. He sauntered up to my garage door, jiggled the handle, and tried to let himself in like this was some kind of reality show sting operation. I stepped forward, still smiling, but with just enough heat in my voice to make it clear playtime was over. "Hey, buddy, where do you think you're going?" He froze, hand still on the door, like a kid caught sneaking cookies before dinner. Just inspecting," he mumbled. Cool, I said, reaching slowly into my pocket. Then I pulled out the badge. Not some plastic toy from Spirit Halloween, my actual, legit, city-issued badge. "Are you aware you're trespassing on a law enforcement officer's property without a warrant?" I asked. My tone friendly, but razor sharp. The guy's face drained so fast you'd think I turned him to grayscale. Karen, who had been halfway through writing up a violation for my mailbox's non-regulation angle, snapped her head around, like she'd just heard her own name at a roast. "What? Wait, you're law enforcement?" she stammered. I turned to her, letting the badge gleam a little in the sunlight. Chief, actually." She stared at me like I had just turned into a dragon and burned down her HOA newsletter. There was a full 5 seconds of silence where I could practically hear the gears in her head grinding to a halt. The crew started backing away from the garage, muttering things about how they didn't know. They were just following orders. Karen said it was fine. "Let me guess," I said, eyes still on Karen. "You told them this was all official business?" She tried to rally. "As president of the HOA, I'm authorized to—" "Nope," I cut in, calm as ever. "You're not authorized to enter any private structure without the owner's permission, and you sure as hell aren't allowed to direct others to do it. That's called criminal trespassing. Look it up." Her jaw moved, but no sound came out. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Just in case there's any confusion later," I said. "For the report." The sudden awareness of the camera was like garlic to a vampire. Karen turned to her goon squad. "We're done here. Wrap it up. Let's go." "But we haven't measured his flower bed symmetry yet," one guy whispered. "I said we're done." They retreated faster than a bad haircut, clipboards clutched like shields, glancing nervously back at me every few feet. Karen was the last to leave, and before she turned down the walkway, she stopped and gave me this look. Like she knew she'd just lost control of the narrative but didn't know how to fix it. "This isn't over," she hissed. I smiled, raising my mug in salute. "Cool. Just remember next time. I really like playing by the book." She stormed off, and I walked back into my house, still chuckling, already planning my next move. Because Karen thought she was playing chess. But I had just flipped the board. So boom. There I am, badge out, voice calm but caring that don't test me energy. And suddenly it's like someone hit the pause button on the whole damn HOA circus. Every clipboard-wielding officer freezes mid-scribble. The guy nearest to me blinks, like he just realized he walked into the wrong movie set, and one poor soul legit drops his clipboard. It lands with a sad little clack on my driveway, papers fluttering like defeated surrender flags. "Karen?" Oh, she goes full deer in headlights. Her smug gotcha grin vanishes so fast it's like it was never there. She looks like someone just pulled the emergency brake on her ego. Gone is the swagger. Now she's standing there, lips twitching, trying to calculate just how hard she's about to eat crow. "Let me ask you something," I say, scanning the crew with a raised brow. "Who issued your uniforms and those badges?" Silence. Just the distant chirp of a bird that's probably watching this mess unfold like it's front row entertainment. Finally, Clipboard McShaky pipes up. We printed them. Printed them? I echo. Like I'm not already staring at the crinkled laminate badge swinging off his neck, like it came from a dollar store clearance bin. At home? He nods, clearly regretting every life decision that led him here. Karen looks like she wants to slap him and herself at the same time. Cool, I say slowly. So let's get this straight. You're trespassing on private property, dressed in fake uniforms, carrying fake badges, and pretending to be some kind of enforcement authority? Karen jumps in, voice all high-pitched and panicked. They're not impersonating anyone, they're volunteer compliance officers, just community helpers, that's all. Volunteer what now? I turn to her, tilting my head. Karen, even if I pretend to believe that, and I don't, volunteers still can't enter someone's property without permission. That's still trespassing. And impersonating an official, whether it's law enforcement or any kind of legal authority, is a serious crime. She opens her mouth, probably ready to spout some HOA rulebook garbage, but I raise a hand before she can get a syllable out. Let me be real clear. This is no longer your little playground. If you or your little crew step 1 foot on my property again without a court order or real law enforcement backing you up, I will press charges. You think citations are scary? Try felony charges for impersonation and unlawful entry. The clipboard guy practically starts backing down the driveway, mumbling about having a dentist appointment or something. Another one yanks his fake badge off and stuffs it in his pocket, like that'll erase the evidence. Karen, now redder than her overwatered petunias, stammers. We were just trying to uphold the standards of the community. Karen, I cut in deadpan. The only standard you're upholding is harassment. And trust me, that's a whole other legal issue you really don't want to add to your resume. I point toward the sidewalk. Now kindly get off my property, all of you, before I stop being polite. They scatter. Not even a dramatic exit. Just sad little shuffles and awkward mumbles as they disappear down the street, leaving behind a half-written violation slip that flutters in the breeze like a tiny failed revolution. Karen lingers like she's trying to figure out whether to apologize or double down on whatever twisted HOA fantasy she's been living in. But when I just stare at her with the weight of every single zoning code I've memorized as a police chief, she gets the message. She mutters something under her breath. I catch the words power trip and abuse. But I don't even dignify it with a response. Just a calm sip of coffee as I watch her stomp away like a toddler who just found out nap time is mandatory. Back inside, I check the footage. Oh yeah, every second recorded, time-stamped, ready for court if it comes to that. And the best part? This wasn't even my final move. Because Karen just played checkers on a chessboard, and I was already setting up the next play. All right, gloves off. Karen messed with the wrong neighbor. And now that her fake HOA patrol has officially imploded like a bad MLM scheme, it's time to take this from backyard drama to full-blown legal takedown. I didn't just want her to leave me alone. I wanted every inch of her power trip ripped out by the roots. So I did what I do best. I started an official investigation. Now, I wasn't just chief on paper. I had the authority, the know-how, and, oh yeah, access to everything I needed to bury this suburban dictatorship. First stop, walking the block, casual-like, clipboard in hand, but for real this time. At the first house, I barely had to knock before the neighbor, a tired-looking dad with twins hanging off his arms, sighed and said, "Is this about the clean sidewalk tax? Because I knew that was BS." Turns out, Karen had been issuing homemade citations with official-looking stamps, fining people for nonsense like pollen accumulation and unauthorized wind chimes. She had guilted them into resolving the matter privately, which really meant slipping her $50 in a manila envelope. This wasn't petty anymore. It was a straight-up scam. Next house, a sweet old lady teared up, telling me Karen threatened to slap a lien on her property over a cracked flower pot. A flower pot she'd paid $200 to avoid legal action because she didn't want trouble. Another neighbor showed me a parking citation that Karen had tucked under his windshield, complete, with a forged signature from a compliance officer. Spoiler alert, it was her handwriting. I wasn't even surprised anymore. The deeper I dug, the messier it got. Fake fines, bogus warnings, and full-on intimidation tactics, all under the fake banner of HOA enforcement. Karen had been LARPing as a dictator for months, and nobody called her out because they were too afraid or just didn't know their rights. But now, I was the walking, talking version of karma. I started documenting everything. Photos of the fake citations, written statements from victims, even video from doorbell cams showing Karen slipping warnings into mailboxes like a suburban loan shark. I organized it all into a clean, mean little case file, each piece of evidence labeled, time-stamped, and ready for prosecution. The best part? Everyone I talked to was thrilled someone was finally standing up to her. One guy literally hugged me. Another offered me a six-pack. By the third house, I had people bringing me coffee and sitting me down like I was their personal savior. "This neighborhood's been a prison," one woman told me. "She fined me because my kids drew chalk on the sidewalk." Chalk on the sidewalk. That was it. I was done being polite. I drafted a report, dropped it on my desk back at the station, and filed the official paperwork to launch a fraud and harassment case. Karen's name was plastered all over it, along with a nice stack of statements, photos, forged documents, and a list of residents more than happy to testify. I wasn't just going to stop her. I was going to make sure she could never pull this crap again. Ever. And, I was only getting started. Because what Karen didn't know yet, the hammer was already in the air, and it was about to drop. Karen really thought she had one last power move in her. After everything, after the fake uniforms, the phony fines, the whole suburban cosplay militia imploding, she still thought she could talk her way out of it. So, she did what any desperate wannabe dictator would do when the walls start closing in. She called an emergency HOA meeting. Of course, she didn't expect me to show up in full uniform. When I walked through the doors of that bland community rec room, bad lighting, stale coffee, folding chairs arranged in a sloppy circle, the energy shifted instantly. Every board member and HOA loyalist froze mid-sip, mid-breath, mid-bullcrap. Even the overhead fan seemed to hesitate. Karen, perched at the head of the table like a dethroned queen trying to claw her way back onto the throne, locked eyes with me and immediately knew she'd miscalculated. I didn't say a word at first, just adjusted my badge, made eye contact with every single person in that room, and sat down like I was settling in for a show. Karen tried to recover fast, voice all fake confidence and tremble-filtered authority. "Let's begin," she said, glancing nervously around. "There have been some misunderstandings about the HOA's recent enforcement efforts." "Oh yeah, misunderstandings. That's what we're calling felony impersonation now?" Before she could launch into her little redemption tour, I raised a hand, calm, firm, professional. "Before you continue, I'd like to present the results of an ongoing investigation." That shut her up. I stood, pulled out a thick manila folder and dropped it on the table. Thud. Half the board members flinched like it was a bomb. One guy literally slid his chair an inch away from Karen. "In the past 2 weeks," I began, voice steady, "I've gathered documented evidence of fraudulent HOA citations, unauthorized trespassing, and impersonation of law enforcement officers. All of it tied to this so-called HOA Enforcement Patrol, which Karen here not only organized, but also weaponized against homeowners." Karen opened her mouth, but I was already pressing play on the audio recorder. And there it was, her voice loud and clear. "People don't listen unless you scare them a little. That's why I made the patrol. It's about keeping order. Intimidation works." You could have heard a pin drop. The HOA treasurer blinked, like someone just flipped his brain's breaker switch. Another member leaned forward, hands shaking as she processed what she'd just heard. I continued. Residents were fined under fake regulations. Some were threatened with liens and legal action. None of it real. I have statements from multiple neighbors confirming Karen solicited cash in exchange for waiving these made-up infractions. Karen stood, practically frothing. "This is harassment. He's using his badge to intimidate me." I didn't even flinch. "No, Karen, this is accountability. There's a difference." Then I turned to the board. "You now have a choice. Continue enabling this behavior, or remove her from power and allow this community to heal." They didn't even need to deliberate. One by one, hands went up, a unanimous vote. Karen was officially booted from the HOA board. Her title, gone. Her control, vaporized. Before she could storm out in a fury, I handed one final folder to the HOA secretary. One stamped for official review by the county DA's office. FYI, I said casually, this file's already been sent to the district attorney. They'll be reviewing it for potential criminal charges. Fraud, harassment, impersonation. You might want to get a lawyer, Karen. Karen didn't say a word. She just stood there, frozen, humiliated, exposed. And for the first time since this whole circus began, I think she finally realized the spotlight wasn't hers anymore. It belonged to the truth. And the truth? It hits harder than any HOA fine ever could. It didn't take long for the house of lies Karen built to come crumbling down like a badly stacked Jenga tower. One day, she was marching around like she was queen of HOA land. And the next? Her fake patrol disbanded, her clipboard army in shambles, and her smug little reign over our neighborhood completely torched by the truth. Official word came down fast. Court summons delivered, fines stacked higher than her ego, and, oh yes, community service. Let me tell you, there's a special kind of poetic justice in seeing someone who used to bark at people about regulation trash bins, now scrubbing graffiti off a park bench in a neon vest. The best part? Nobody was scared of her anymore, not even a little. The Karen curse had been broken. The morning after the HOA officially dissolved her made-up enforcement squad, I stepped out onto my now peaceful, gnome-safe lawn and made a big show of reinstalling the little guy she once declared non-compliant. But this time, oh, I upgraded him. Tiny, tactical, adorable. My lawn gnome now wore a mini police uniform. Badge, hat, sunglasses, even a tiny little baton. I named him Officer Sprinkles. Felt right. When the neighbors saw him, it was like a switch flipped. Everyone started coming out of the woodwork with a grin and a joke. "Hey, Chief," one guy laughed, pointing at his flamingo. "Think you can deputize this guy? He's been getting into some shady pond business." Another lady handed me a soda and said, "My ceramic squirrel's been stealing mail again. Might need you to put him in the lineup." It was like a massive weight had lifted off the whole block. People were chatting again. Kids were drawing chalk art on the sidewalks without their parents panicking about fake fines. Someone even hosted a cookout, first one in over a year. The burgers weren't amazing, but the vibe, immaculate. Karen, meanwhile, became a ghost. No more stomping down the sidewalks with a ruler. No more weird, late-night mailbox snooping. No more passive-aggressive letters typed in Comic Sans. Her once daily tantrums turned into radio silence. Every now and then, I'd spot her peeking through her curtains, watching the neighborhood she once ruled with HOA tyranny now thriving in her absence. But she never stepped outside, probably too busy figuring out how to spin mandatory litter pickup into a political comeback. Spoiler, not happening. As for me, I kept my cameras up. Still rolling, still watching. Not because I'm paranoid, but because once someone's built a throne out of fear and fake authority, they don't always give it up so easy. And if Karen ever gets any bright ideas about staging a comeback tour, well, let's just say Officer Sprinkles and I are ready. The neighborhood is calm now. No more fear of surprise inspections. No more fines for lawn gnome orientation. Just peace, petty plastic animals, and the distant echo of justice well served. And every time I look out at my driveway, my drawbridge, and that proud little gnome holding the line, I remember. Sometimes the best way to deal with a Karen is to outsmart her, outlast her, and outdecorate her, one mini police hat at a time.